Alrighty, welcome back, folks. We are here today for model number 2. Woo! So here is model number 2. You can see we have our completed model number 2, and in this video, we are going to go over the process of creating this model number 2. In the following video, we'll follow the process of turning model 2 into drawing number 2. But to go ahead and get started, let's go ahead and go to our Onshape menu. Let's go ahead and go to Create and Document, and let's name this document Model Number 2. Now I have this set as Model Number 2. Go ahead and hit OK. And the first step is figuring out which plane we want to start on. So just looking at the drawing and looking at the model, I've decided that I'm going to start this from the top plane. So you can see I have my top plane here. I will right click, I'll select new sketch, and you can see I am now in sketch number 1. I no longer need my top view to be my top plane to show, so I'm going to hide that. And then my next step is to right click and select view normal to sketch plane. So now you can see I'm looking directly at my sketch number 1. This is perfect for creating our general base. So to get started looking at this drawing here, I can see that I want to, I'm going to use a center point rectangle. And I want to create a rectangle that is 10 inches by 5 inches. And again, I got this from the model itself. It told me all of this. The very next step I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by putting a sketch fillet in. So to avoid doing a fillet later on, I'm going to get it out of the way now. And I know that my fillet is going to be pretty sizable. In fact, it is going to be 2.5 inch radius. So this is a 2.5 inch radius. And you can see I have one on this side and I have one on that side. And now we're left with that kind of nice rounded over front. Now, the other important thing that this does is provide a reference point. So you can see that with that R2.5, here, let's see if I can move this out of the way. With that R2.5, we're left with this nice center point. And this center point is what we are going to use to place a couple other points. So let me go ahead and we're going to grab a center point circle, and right at the center of this, I'm going to go ahead and do a left click and release. I'm going to go ahead and drag out, and then based off of my drawing, I know that I have a radius of 0.5 here. So I'll go ahead and select 0.5 and hit enter. I apologize. It is not, it is a 1 inch diameter, 0.5 inch radius. That's totally my fault. So we got our 1 inch diameter circle, 1/2 inch radius circle here. And if we look at the drawing, we have another circle a bit of a way down. In fact, it's 2.5 inches from the center point of this circle. So if I click here and I go directly to the left, 2.5 inches, you'll see, believe it or not, I'm actually directly at my origin point. But it is still good to use these references. So let's say I hide my origin, and then you can see my endpoint there. So at that endpoint, I'll go ahead and place another circle. This circle is going to match up with that 1/2 inch radius or 1 inch diameter. Now that I have both of these placed, I have just a few more steps. I am going to go on the tangent point and connect both of these tangent points here on that side and on this side. And it should automatically select those points for you, so you don't have to worry about that too much. Now to clean everything up, I'm going to go ahead and hide a couple things like those dimensions. You don't have to, you can leave them if you want. And our very last step is to remove the inner parts of these circles. So this allows you to use another tool that you may or may not have used, and that is our trim tool. So with your trim tool, you're simply going to select the scissors up top and you will click on whatever it is you would like to trim. So again, I'm trying to get rid of that, and I'm trying to get rid of that. And if you can see now, we are left with this very, very nice looking model. All right, perfect. Perfect. So our next step is to go ahead and finish our sketch. Once we have finished our sketch, I can go ahead and do an isometric. So we're looking at it from the viewpoint that we would like. We are ready to do an extrusion. Let's go ahead and reference back to the drawing and take a look and figure out how tall our base extrusion needs to be. So if I'm looking at it, I can tell from my front view that my base extrusion needs to be at a 1 inch height, a 1 inch height. So once I've adjusted this and clicked on the closed loop that I would like to extrude, I can go ahead and hit my green check mark, and I am left with, let me do a zoom to fit, my base. Wonderful. Now, in fact, there's not too much else. In fact, this is a pretty simple drawing, believe it or not, or model, believe it or not. In order to do our next step, I am going to start a new sketch on our top face. So I'll right click, I will select a new sketch. You can see a new sketch plane has been placed on our top face. All I need to do is right click and select view normal to sketch plane. Once again, we're flipping it around and we are looking directly at that sketch number 2, which is on the top face of our model. So the next thing we're going to do is focus on those upright pieces. And looking at my model, looking at my drawing, I know that this is a 4 inch by 1 inch rectangle, and these rectangles are shown on both sides. So I'll start by selecting a corner rectangle, and I'll go on this back edge here. You see I get my orange square and circle, and I click. I will drag it out. And I know, as I mentioned, this is 4 by 1. So now I have a 4 inch by 1 inch rectangle over here. I will follow that same process right here. I got 2 4 inch by 1 inch rectangles. That's all we're doing for sketch number 2. I'm going to finish my sketch. I'm going to select isometric, and I'm ready to extrude. So we're going to take a look at our drawing again. And from this side view, I noticed that we have an overall height. Oops, not sketch number 3. From the side view, I noticed that we have an overall height of 5. Now, keep in mind, we already have our base height of 1. So we'll subtract that 1, and we'll get an overall height of 4. Now that we're left with our overall height of 4, we can go ahead and hit our green check mark, and this is what we are left with. Right, there's a couple issues. You'll notice that these are all square and we need to round them off. So let's go ahead and do that first before we add our last sketch. So the first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead up to our fillet tool, and let's take a look. We notice from our front view that these curves here have a radius of 2. Adjust it to 2. Click on all 4 edges there, and you'll see that perfectly rounds off that top, and it looks real nice. Go ahead and hit your check mark, and that's your first fillet. The next fillet is down below here. Now, these are much, much smaller. In fact, these have a radius of 0.5. So I'll adjust that to 0.5. Once again, I'll hit my edge, and I'll hit my edge, and that'll create that nice little round over that we're looking for. Great. The only thing that we need to do now is add our holes that go directly through both of these side pieces. In order to do that, I will right click and I will select new sketch. New sketch, and that will pop up our sketch 3 plane. Right click, view normal to sketch plane, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I am going to use a point. So if I got my point tool, and if I hover over all of this, you can see that I'm able to find the center point of this curve. And the center point of this curve will be referenced by that orange box right there. So once we get that orange box, we can simply go ahead and click, and that is going to place our center point. Of course, if we want to double check, we can definitely go from the edge and make sure that this hits at a 2-inch line, which is exactly what it's doing. Now that I've placed that point, that's the only thing I need to do. I can hit my green check mark, and I can select isometric to flip it around. We're going to use a new tool. This is called the hole tool. So if I click my hole tool, I need to reference what I want to create a hole with, and that is my point. And you can see right now I have it set to go to go through all. So it's going to go through both sides all the way through. So you don't have to create a new sketch on this side, just one that goes all the way through. And the other thing we need to do is we need to adjust the size or diameter of this hole. This is going to be a 1-inch diameter hole. So once I have this adjusted, make sure that I have it through all or at a specific distance, I can go ahead and hit my green check mark. And we are left, we are left with our finished model. Woo. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit isometric, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust the appearance of my model. I'll select my middle purple because that's the color I choose. And our last step is to upload this. So in order to send this for points, we'll go to the document menu, we will select print, and then we need to adjust our model so that it fits inside of our print window. Of course, you can also adjust this. Here, let me go zoom to fit. You can also adjust this to be landscape if you would like. That makes it a little bit easier so that you do not have to adjust anything. So in fact, I am going to adjust this to landscape. You can keep it portrait and change the size and placement of your model, but I'm just going to adjust it to landscape, and then I'll hit download image. Once that image is downloaded, this is what I'm going to be uploading to Schoology for points. So there you can see we have our finished model. Thanks for watching, and tune into the next one.